So picture this. You are a middle school student in the 8th grade year. You walk into your last period of the day, already tired, already stressed, already wanting to go home, already wanting this day to be over with. You have been so excited all day long about the biggest matchup of the day, and it's happened to go on during the time you are in school. Call me crazy, but this is real and this is true. Because all the way back in 2016, I was an 8th grader at Tri-North Middle School in Bloomington, Indiana. This was a historic moment for all of us as fans to remember something that we would never forget, because we were the number 1 seed going into the Big Ten championship, and nothing was going to stop us. Nothing was going to stop us from getting to this moment, to where we're playing the Michigan Wolverines in front of this packed of a crowd inside of Bankers Life Fieldhouse, what was then Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana. I remember going into that game just so pumped. I was even watching the game on my tablet, on my iPad. And they never allowed us to do that then. But I do remember very fondly walking into my last period, and it was a history course with who I'm going to call the sheriff of Mr. Williams, and he was watching the game all decked out in Hoosier scarlet of Hoosier cream and crimson. And I remember we were watching 25, 24, 23. Hoosiers make a big shot near the end. But then what happens next? When Michigan gets the basketball with 20 seconds left to go in the game, and so on, when Cameron Chapman hit the shot of his life, the whole room was dead. The whole room sunk. I sunk. The kids sunk. And I remember there was this kid named Garrett, and he walked into the room, and he was like, "What just happened? What just happened?" And he happened to have a hall pass for me. Already shook up, already in disarray anyway, from what had just happened during the game. I get a hall pass, and then my teacher, Mr. Williams, says, "Braydyn," and he hands the pass to me, and I go straight to the counseling office for reasons that I don't want to explain on camera, but it was due to bullying myself at the time and having mental health issues. I remember walking the old hallway at Tri-North Middle School. Everyone was silent. Everything was silent. Every classroom stunned. Every person to the floor. It was the saddest moment of my young Hoosier experience at the time. And to even put salt on the wound, my assistant principal, Mr. Sealand, would play "Hail to the Victors, Hail to the Conquering Heroes," and you could just hear it all throughout the gymnasium. And I'm going, "Fuck you!" the whole time. And it's just, it was, I'll admit, end of the story is, it was a very sad day to be a Hoosier. But it wasn't for the Wolverines, a team that needed a revival. Because the 2015-16 Wolverines team was not perfect on paper. 22-8 was their record. Nobody ever thought they would get to this point, to where they eliminated the Indiana Hoosiers, because they were in fact the number 8 seed going into the Big Ten tournament. But what happened after this historic game against the Indiana Hoosiers would be momentous for a struggling program needing an extra lift of confidence going into the postseason. With more NBA talent to boot, one championship appearance before 2016, with one more to follow, and 3 tournament appearances after the fact, the Michigan team was loaded going into the big dance, and other big dances for years to come. But however, the story of the Michigan Wolverines started in 2015-16 for their reign of dominance in the 2010s. This is the story of how one shot in one shining moment gave hail to the victors to the Michigan Wolverines. In other words, here is the story of the 2015-16 Michigan Wolverines men's basketball team who changed Michigan basketball forever. Hello everyone, please comment, like, and subscribe, and become Eternal Sitting by the Myrtle, as more content will come out every Sunday and Tuesday except for a few exceptions. Our channel is growing, and I am extending my social media options, given the potential TikTok ban and everything, so my content is moving to YouTube and Instagram starting this February and March, and more radio content is on the way. If you want to listen to retro sports and broadcasting, you can also listen to the Retro Sports Hub on Anchor.fm, anywhere you get your podcasts, down in the description below. And for now, let's go to the video. Before we jump into this story, here's a backstory for you about this Michigan Wolverines team, because as I said in the beginning, their season actually did not start around 2015-16. It only got rebirthed. But this is a long-winded story about a team who has not only come back from adversity, but had a very bipolar run to the NCAA tournament on numerous occasions. But let's start with the beginning.
Michigan went from being a national power to being an afterthought. From 1999 to 2008, 0 NCAA tournaments.
A 19-0 run and the third timeout of the first half called by Michigan.
I had a young man that I was recruiting that was born in 1990 ask me if Michigan was ever good in basketball, and that was shocking to me.
Before we jump into this story, I want to talk about the year 1999 to 2008, where the Michigan Wolverines did not make an NCAA tournament during those years, the longest run without a tournament appearance in school history. The school was left in shambles, losing to teams such as Michigan State, even Indiana had one. So when John Beiline had a hold on this team, they began to fall apart for him in the first 3 years. Until one day in January 2011, a new resurgence was going to be born in East Lansing, as the Michigan Wolverines would beat the Michigan State Spartans for the first time since 1997. A program seemingly overnight changed in the blink of an eye, and they found their newfound DNA. But one win would not be enough for a struggling team. So, what did the smart John Beiline do? I mean, well, not as smart as when he allowed Texas to beat West Virginia at that one time. But Beiline's recruiting tactics were at best very, very good. He was fortunate to get a big-time recruit to a big-time program in Trey Burke, who became the co-Big Ten Freshman of the Year, and Michigan was on the cusp of winning their first Big Ten title in 26 years, thanks to the boys down south in Ohio State, who, if Ohio State had won that game, they would allow Michigan to go all the way to the NCAA tournament. After going to the tournament, it still wasn't enough. They had scars to heal and places to go. After losing to the Ohio Bobcats in that year's NCAA tournament, which became the worst loss to many in their lifetime, as they were able to build this team from the ground up, starting from that loss where they began to work and began to put in the work. 5 freshmen next season would join the Wolverine squad for the 2012-13 season, 2 from Indiana, and with Trey Burke returning to the squad for his sophomore year, Michigan was so loaded to win a national championship, they earned the #1 seed in the AP poll for the first time since 1992, yes, during the Fab Five era. In the NCAA tournament, they would have a Cinderella run, beating South Dakota State, the then 2011 Cinderellas, who now is in 2013, VCU squad, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they had probably one of the biggest victories in all of their program's history against a dismantled Kansas Jayhawks team who were powerful in the first half, scoring 60 points in the paint. And not only that, but Michigan was guarded out in the first until a comeback surged, and Trey Burke would hit the ultimate three of his life.
Again, 1-1, so a lot of pressure here on this first one. And goes too strong. 3-point game. Burke moves it down. 5 seconds. Fires for 3. The game is tied. He's tied it. Are you kidding me? Trey Burke. That's why he's the Big Ten Player of the Year, All-American. On a night when his jump shot has been sporadic at best, launches a 30-footer.
Pulled up and I was like, wow, that's a bad shot.
It was equivalent to the little movie I saw back when I was a youngster, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Burke, a very long three.
And the chills that went through your body was something that I had not experienced before in my life.
Are you kidding me?
That shot, which forced overtime, would just serve as a level of hypnosis for our opponent.
He is on fire. He has taken over this game.
And we went through the overtime period with no doubt that we were coming out with a win.
The Wolverines of Michigan come from 14 down to defeat the Jayhawks of Kansas.
3 minutes and 50 seconds left and we down 11. We can't stand, we're not done.
I think it will go down as one of the most memorable comebacks in the history of college sports.
After this win against Kansas, they had 48 hours to prepare for their next matchup, which was against the Florida Gators in the Elite Eight. And Florida was dismantled for the first time in over 20 years in a blowout victory over the Wolverines. After that, they went on to play Syracuse in the NCAA Final Four, and their improbable run would eventually come to an end as the Louisville Cardinals, later to be exposed and barred by the NCAA. So technically what I'm saying is that this national title, let's just say Michigan won it. Michigan would become the eventual national championship after this rule, but beforehand, Louisville became the ultimate victors and won their first national championship in the Rick Pitino era. By 2014, the team had struggled a bit, but continued to keep up the same leverage as they did in 2012-13. Struggling a little bit. Not bad, though, for a squad that was not only a dominational threat in the Big Ten, but it really showed during the 2015-16 season. Moritz Wagner, and now Miami Heat and then transfer player Duncan Robinson joined the Wolverines squad in the 2015-16 season to become a dominant threat in this for centers all throughout the Big Ten. The struggling team went 10-8 in conference play, along with having a 21-11 record after beating Northwestern in overtime 72-70 in the Big Ten tournament. The next day, Michigan notched the game up against Indiana, and it was closer than the experts thought. But not only did Michigan have great defense against Yogi Ferrell and Thomas Bryant guarding them in that defensive motion that they did, but Cameron Chapman, who became the star player of the game for hitting a buzzer beater near the end, also looked impressive. This was the moment that the Bear began to wake up for the Michigan Wolverines. A team that was already destined for success needed a wake-up call. During this Big Ten tournament, they ended up losing to Purdue in a blowout 76-57 victory, as Purdue would head on to go to the Big Ten championship. During the NCAA tournament, the Michigan Wolverines advanced to the first round of the tournament with a nearly unanimous vote to advance and play against Tulsa, before losing eventually in the third round of the tournament to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This described an eventual rise and fall of the Michigan Wolverines basketball squad, but not without a one last hurrah and one more thank you from the John Beiline crew and company. Not only am I describing this 2015-16 team because, well, I still have emotional distress from what had just happened during the game, even years later, but this team started the new Juwan Howard era of the Michigan basketball program, and his reign of dominance was now known and is now known throughout the NCAA tournament, but this also reworked an already sleeping Bear to come out of hibernation, because this team had to just wake up. As I've said so many times in this video, they've had to wake up and scratch, and not only scratch but wake up to the notion that, hey, you guys can be winners. Michigan would then advance in the 2018 NCAA tournament, having an iconic win from this moment.
So the pass pass is going to come from Livers. He rifles it right in front of us to Abdul Rahman at midcourt. Extra pass. And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole! A freshman has won it for the Wolverines!
And not only that, but Michigan was able to play in their final national championship game under the John Beiline era against the Villanova Wildcats, who ended up stunning the world that year. And Michigan had played in the Final Four that year against Loyola Chicago, so it makes sense how Michigan began to struggle. After the Beiline era, we all know Juwan Howard came in and became the Will Smith of Big Ten basketball. And after this reign of dominance, we now know how Michigan started, but also how they finished. But the story continues every year when you see a bad Michigan team. If you see a team like Michigan with a not-so-perfect record, think about the 2015-16 team for a minute. And for Hoosiers fans like me, we could still be haunted throughout the length of time. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is Turtle by the Myrtle, and hopefully I can share some more stories, as we got a lot of stories and content coming out through the NCAA tournament. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.